Hi, Miss Masudian. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? It has been forever.
I know. It's great to see you.
You too. So, what year are you? You're in college, right?
Yes, I am a sophomore in college.
That's wild. Where are you studying?
I'm at Villanova.
Very nice. And what are you studying at Villanova?
Well, I'm in the school of business. I
Very
haven't
nice.
technically declared yet, but I'm thinking finance and business analytics. So,
Very nice. Very nice. So, thank you for doing this. I've been doing a YouTube channel where I basically try to reconnect with former students and talk to them about what they wish they would have learned in school, either with me or with anyone really, along your journey. And it could be something that you talked about a little bit, but you didn't get to talk about enough, or it could be something you don't really feel was talked about at all, but you think it should have been. So,
mhm.
what are your thoughts on that?
I will say I familiarized myself with your YouTube channel before
Oh,
doing
good.
this. Yes, I watched a few of them. I think it's awesome what you're doing. I want to thank you
Thanks.
for letting me be a part of it.
Of
Uh,
course.
and I did see a lot of things that I was thinking about talking about. I was trying to think of something that maybe was like more all encompassing. And
Hmm.
a big thing for me is personal health and wellness. So, I
Ah,
know we have health class, just covering both mental and physical health. I think it really affects every aspect of your life.
definitely.
A lot of people say at the end of the day, your health is what matters most.
Yes.
I wholeheartedly agree with this. And I think, especially, in light of recent events, this is kind of something that's been highlighted by the
Mm,
pandemic, both
yes.
mental and physical well being. But I really think it just forced people to kind of take a mental inventory of where they're at in their life, acknowledging their state of mind.
What do you
Because
think? What do you think it was about the pandemic that brought it to the surface for all of us?
I think it was just, a lot of repetition. There's not
Mm,
much distractions. The distractions that you do have may not be
mm,
the most beneficial or healthy. You
yeah.
know, a lot of people spend probably most of their time maybe on social media, maybe watching the news. And at the time, a lot of negative stuff on the news.
Yes.
So it can really just put you in I don't know, an unhealthy loop in your mind. Uh, you know, most of the time in a typical day-to-day lifestyle, you have stuff to kind of distract you maybe,
Yeah.
but during the pandemic when you're in quarantine.
It's kind of like food, right? What you take in is gonna be reflected in your overall physical health.
Absolutely, yeah.
What you're
You are
taking
what you
in,
eat.
what you're taking in mentally is gonna be reflected in your mental health then too. What do you do to avoid getting fatigued?
Yeah, that's a great question. Personally, I just like to kind of keep things light, have a sense of humor.
Hmm.
uh, I rely a lot on my friends for providing a lot of that kind of relief
Yeah.
in a way. Just being social, kind of,
Mm,
you can't really shut yourself in,
mm,
which again, that's what kind of forced people to do in the pandemic. That's probably why it was so hard to, rely on that
yeah.
interaction. But yeah, again, depends on the situation, depends on the context of what it is that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But just in general, trying to, stay positive. Um,
And
and
what
yeah,
about, you said mental and physical health? So what about the physical part? I think that's hard
yeah.
for many people because it's a habit, a lifestyle, etc. So what do you do to address that?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, physical health, it's always been something that I've been pretty passionate about. Once upon a time, I did play competitive sports. I mean, lift weights. I don't run much. I am not a big fan of running, but here and there,
Many people are not.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's just a big part of it is just starting to get in
Mm,
a routine,
so
a
true.
rhythm, something that's, oh, people always say finding something that's sustainable for you, which obviously is so important. It doesn't really have to be much. It could just be, 30 minutes a day. I know at school, a busy schedule,
Yeah.
especially the past couple of weeks, studying for finals and everything. You don't have as much time as you usually do, but just finding, 20, 30 minutes, it's better than nothing, and that
Yeah.
adds up.
I think it's so interesting that so many of the interviews that I've done, mental health comes up. And
Mhm.
I'm so curious because I wonder if when you were in fifth grade or sixth grade, even if we were to gather you all into a room and talk about what's really on your mind or what are you really experiencing, do you feel like you would have been comfortable to really share that?
Well, I feel like the issue with being at such a young age, it's hard to kind of comprehend, and then
Mm,
not only comprehend, but then articulate what it is that you're feeling and what's
yeah,
making you feel that way, and then what we should do to address it. Um, but I tried to do my due diligence, did some research here, and
good.
according to the CDC, about 4.4 million children between the ages 3 and 17 have been diagnosed with anxiety, 1.9
Wow.
million with depression, and 6.1 million with ADHD. So obviously, very prevalent. 3 to 17, that reaches a pretty young age, and that's just one kind of demographic of the population. Obviously, that extends into young adult life and even
Right.
into adulthood. Um, but these disorders that, especially when they're left, undiagnosed and untreated, as many times they are, it can really hinder a child's development. And on top of that, we talk about depression. Suicide was actually the second leading cause of death in children or ages 10 to 24. And
Oh
that's
my
about like
gosh.
20%. So again, huge problem there. Um, I feel like, recently it's been kind of getting more attention as it should, but there's always more you can do. Uh, but tying it back to even being in fifth grade, school is a stressful place.
Yes.
It's tough between grades, extracurriculars, and then you have like social stressors as well. And I mean, just looking at grades, students kind of, and I'm guilty of this as well, as I'm sure a lot of students are, they kind of think that their worth is directly
Yeah.
correlated to a letter grade.
Yeah.
And it's so detrimental to your mental health, especially when those grades don't meet your expectations. I can speak from personal experience. I've There's been times where I've felt like physically sick to my stomach over a bad grade, and that's just such an unhealthy
Right.
perspective. And
Hmm.
a lot of that comes personally from within yourself. But I've always tried to think like, how can you make that better? And I'm sure this is on the minds of educators and
Hmm.
administrations that are always trying to improve the lives of students. And how can we make this better? I'm sure it's on their mind. It's not like they're
Yes.
not trying. It's just such
Yeah.
a difficult problem to solve because, like, looking at like the weighting of a final grade, I know, like, my finance class this semester, like 30% was the final exam alone. So when it comes down to it, there could be like one question that like make or breaks your
Right.
grade. So finding a way to kind of like balance that. I know some teachers try to do it more than others, but it's hard, because at the end of the day, you need to assign a grade, and that's going to affect your, whether it's your GPA or your report card or whatever. So that's something that's always kind of right there in your face as a student. But then you have the more like intangibles, like who your friends are, who you're fitting in with, things like that.
Mm,
And it's hard, especially you you're with fifth, sixth graders.
yep.
It's hard for them to even comprehend what it is they're experiencing. Also confusing, difficult time as a tween or a teen, going through those changes. Uh,
Yes.
so there's a lot going on, and I think it's important that we provide those students with, all the resources that they
Maybe
need.
even starting with just giving them language to use to how do you
Yeah,
express
absolutely.
what it is, what you're feeling, or even describing what different feelings even are. Because as you're saying this, I'm realizing that there probably is a huge assumption on our part as teachers that kids come to school knowing what it means to be anxious, knowing what it means to
Yeah,
be confused, knowing what it means to be self-conscious, but maybe they don't know what that means. It's possible that
yeah.
they're not familiar with that language. So if you had to teach a class to fifth graders on personal wellness, what do you think you would do, or how would you address it?
But maybe just letting them know things like putting yourself in the best position to be a happy individual. Like, don't
Mm,
try not to compare yourself to others. I know that's really hard not to do, especially with social media when everybody's
Yes.
got their highlight reels on Instagram or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. But just being content with who you are, what you have, putting things into perspective. For every person that you compare yourself to and you envy, there's probably someone else comparing themselves to you and thinking the same thing
Absolutely.
about you. The grass is always greener. So that's just something to always keep in mind. Once you kind of come to terms with that, you can really just change your perspective. Um, and also just being conscious of your mental state. Like you said, providing students with kind of that language
Mm.
and just the means and the resources to comprehend and then like report back what
Mhm.
it is that they're feeling. That's always something that could help.
So I do think, and I don't have the statistics on this, I do believe though that for mental health, males are less likely to communicate when they are
I've heard
experiencing
that as well.
experiencing challenges, or basically feeling less than or weak. They're less likely
Mm.
to communicate it. Do you feel like that's true? Have you experienced that, or your friends? Are you likely with your friends to sit and talk about, hey, I'm feeling sad, and using those words? I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm feeling self-conscious. Would you likely use that language?
Um, so I can gladly say that I have a tight group of friends. We're open with each other. I will say personally, I am reluctant to use that language. It's just kind of a common thing. Well, I don't want to generalize and speak for everyone, but personally, it's almost like you feel like it's a sign of weakness, and you never want to,
Mm,
display weakness. But that's not the case because everybody, feels those feelings. It's just a matter of whether you. I actually think it's weak to hold them inside and not report them because there's courage and bravery in reaching out, letting people know how you're feeling. I will say from personal experience, I've had friends that suffer severely with anxiety and they have opened up about it, and it's not a comfortable situation to be in, but you have to kind of in any aspect of your life just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it's something
mm.
that it probably takes practice. um, but personally, I definitely see that reluctance in opening up. I don't know if that comes from being a male or just the environment that I've grown up in. Um, but that's something that a kind of a stigma, I guess, that we should probably work on changing.
Do you think
So
that it can change once you have? Because the thing is, what I find interesting is we know better. We don't always do better. I think
yes.
we all know. Like I think kids know, oh, when you're upset, tell a teacher. When you're upset, tell an adult. But that doesn't mean they're going to. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out, well, what will it take to actually make it so that they will? And I guess that comes down to creating a safe environment, maybe, or
Mhm.
building that relationship with the students. Do you feel like you're a sophomore in college or an adult? Do you feel like even though you know better, would you potentially change the language you use, or you're pretty sure you're going to stick to how you've been?
I think a major factor that can influence whether someone opens up is seeing other people open up. So I think a
Yes.
great thing that has happened recently is you're seeing like more high profile
Mm,
athletes come
yes.
out about struggling with mental health
Yes.
or mental disorders. And I think that has probably the most tangible impact on whether or not younger kids, particularly males,
Mm,
open up about how they're feeling. Because when they
mm,
see this, strong, masculine, role model that comes out and says, "Hey, I struggle with these issues. I'm feeling depressed." One such example, I believe, would be Dak Prescott.
right.
Quarterback of the Cowboys,
Yeah.
phenomenal athlete, very
Yeah.
successful, kind of a macho man. He said, "Hey, especially over
He's a
the
cowboy.
pandemic." Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, the quarterback of America's team. I'm a Giants fan, so
So am I.
sadly. But when you see
Right
someone
now, it's very sad.
exactly, yeah. But when you see someone like that open up and being so willing to kind of use that language, it really makes a difference because kids that look up to someone like that, they'll be like, "Oh, hey, I'm feeling like that too. I guess I
And
can
cool,
open up
that's
about
fine.
that." Yeah.
And that's a great example that you use. My hope is that that will trickle down. I was actually talking about this with some of my colleagues that I think, or I wonder, I don't really know if part of the challenge or problem is that students interact with their teachers, especially at younger ages, more than their own parents, just
Hmm.
because of hours in a day, right? They're with us
Hmm.
longer than they are with their own parents. But when they interact with us, we're always like, hey, it's
Yeah.
great. And how are you, Miss Masood? I'm great. How are you? And
Yeah.
it's not that I'm not great, but like, I'm not always great.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
maybe I'm tired today. Maybe, Jimmy didn't do his homework. That's stressing me out. So
Yeah.
maybe we have to be also more human in our
Hmm.
interactions with our students sometimes. That doesn't mean we go to them as our therapists, but like
Yeah.
we can certainly be more honest and show that that's part of being. I can still be sad and still do my job, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those are normal feelings. So
Yeah.
obviously, mental health, huge component of just your overall well-being. But obviously, again, physical health, teaching
Hmm.
kids the importance of taking care of their body. It's
Hmm.
one thing to, have PE class, kind of forcing a student to participate in,
Yeah.
being active for however many 40 minutes a day, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but teaching them, why and how to be active on their own and the importance of it and leading a healthy lifestyle is really essential because like you say, you can lead a horse to water, you can't force him to drink or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same thing. uh, I always thought one of my favorite classes actually was, despite being a finance major now, one of my favorite classes in high school was biology, just because I just thought it was so cool learning about your body and what's going on internally,
Yes.
and kind of that idea of, like, if you ever heard it, like the idea of the fact that the brain named itself, just the fact that us as humans, we had to kind of research to in order to understand those like innate and kind of perpetual processes that are going on like within our body that we don't even know about,
Yeah.
and we almost had to like teach ourselves consciously to understand what's going on subconsciously. And
Mm,
I always thought that was a really cool idea,
it
but
is.
also just the fact that like most of the things I was learning was like applicable, like you could take action on it and better yourself, like knowing my body functions a certain way in response to this, so I'll do
Mm,
that in order to help it, more, or learning about macronutrients and the effects they have
yep.
on your body and the way it responds. I feel like if you provide students with kind of a deeper understanding of
Hmm.
why being healthy is so important and why eating healthy, how it affects your body,
Yeah.
uh, and why being active is so important on a deeper level, they might be more eager to embrace it. So
True. Do you also think that like is working out sometimes surrounded by negativity? Like, oh, it's just so hard, so much effort. It's
yeah.
I don't have time, as opposed to like,
Mhm.
oh, cool, I get to work out. I get to take care of my body. I am
Yeah.
healthy. I have 2 arms and 2 legs, and I have the energy to do this. I'm lucky to be able to go and do this. Do you feel like the
I think
attitude
that's,
around it needs to shift a little
yeah,
bit?
yeah, that's absolutely great point. Back in the day, when I was playing sports, and when you suffer an injury, one minute you're like, oh, I got to go to practice. I'm
Right.
sore. I don't want to go. The next minute, you have a concussion and you can't go to practice.
Yeah.
So you take it for granted. And so, that's a great point. Like personally, sometimes I'm like, I can't wait to get to the gym, work off maybe some frustration or whatever it may be, some extra energy.
Yeah.
And then other times you're like really dragging, you're like, I don't want to go today, you
Yep.
know? And
Absolutely.
everything, nutrition, mental health, working out, everything, it comes in a balance. It's doing
Yes.
things in moderation.
Working out is also great for your mental health.
It
It is
absolutely is.
fantastic for your mental health.
Yeah. I mean, when you're used to just like you're in a routine, you're going every day, you're feeling good, and then maybe one minute you stop, it helps relieve stress when you get to go, you
Yes.
go to the gym, you work out,
Yes.
it definitely does have an impact on your mental health. And there's a bunch of things that you can do to put yourself in the best position to be in a good state of mind, like some of the things that your other past students were saying about time management,
Mm,
things like that.
yeah.
I think it's having good time management also is something that can really have a good impact on your mental health. Like when you practice good time management, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You kind of transition from having like an external locus of control to an internal. Like you feel like you're in charge of what goes on in your life. You're in charge of the way you feel.
Yep.
Um, So when you write things down in an agenda and you cross them off, you feel good. You know, you feel
Yes.
good about yourself. That makes
Yes.
you have a good state of mind, a good
Accomplish.
headspace. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's plenty of things that you may not realize have an impact on your mental health. That and hey, that's what we can build into this curriculum if this ends up making a change. I know. All credit to the PE teachers; they do a lot. Help
They're
we have
amazing.
yeah, we have that curriculum in place now. I just think we can maybe put more of an emphasis on it. You know?
I agree. I agree. And I think the teachers need a little bit more training now too, because I think
Mhm.
this is certainly something that can't be ignored anymore. So I think that it
Yeah,
needs to be something that we are also trained on addressing. So I think
absolutely.
that's a great point. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Nick?
Just putting kids in the best position they can be to be happy and succeed, and providing them with the necessary resources to do so. So
Yeah. Well, it looks like you're doing really well. So would you say you're enjoying your time at Villanova?
absolutely, absolutely. Kids, stay in school, study hard. But
Staying
yeah,
in school.
but
Like
yeah,
an after school special commercial. I like it.
yeah,
Good
but
luck with finance when you're on Wall Street. Let me know.
we'll do.
Thank you very much.
But no, yeah, thank you for taking the
Of
time to
course.
talk to me. I really appreciate it,
Of
and keep
course.
this up. This is awesome.
I
I
love
really
that you
love
think
it.
that. And if you are in touch with any other Masudians, which I don't know if
Mhm.
you are, let them know. And I would love to interview them as well.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sood. All right, I'll
Yeah.
keep in touch. Talk to you
You
soon.
too. Bye.
Bye bye.